Good morning, everyone. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be with us to go through the overview of the Direct Assistant Grant Scheme. With me, I'm Sonia Bowen, first of all, and with me is my colleague Tanya Cummins, and the two of us will be taking you through the process as it relates to the Direct Assistant Grant Scheme. I want to turn you over to Tanya, who will be giving you an overview of the Direct Assistance Scheme.
Thank you, Sonia. Good morning again, everyone. Just a few points to note before we get into the presentation. As you all would realize, the mics are currently muted by us, the organizers, and this is so that we can control more or less the attendees. So we will be stopping periodically and giving you a chance to answer any questions. However, during the course of the presentation and you have a question, please utilize the hand raise option. We'll be monitoring the hand raising and we will stop and unmute the mics so that you can ask any questions, and you can also type any questions. If you don't have a mic, you can type the questions in the question bar as well. So that's it for those notes. Let's begin this morning's presentation. So I'll be taking you through the overview where we'll have a look at the eligibility requirements, the application process, the evaluation process, eligible and ineligible project costs. Now, the Direct Assistance Grant Scheme, this call for proposal offers grants between €10,000 to €30,000. It's a reimbursable funding facility with a 70-30 split, meaning you will be required to fund 100% of the proposed project, and we will reimburse you up to a maximum of 70%, but not exceeding €30,000. Beneficiaries will have 6 months from the date of the grant contract to execute their project. So basically your project implementation period would be 6 months, and this 6 months will commence one day after you sign the grant contract. The grant allows for 2 opportunities to submit a reimbursement claim, which is the interim and the final reimbursement claim. Now, essentially, the interim reimbursement claim gives you the opportunity anytime throughout your 6 months implementation period to submit a reimbursement rather than wait till the end of the project. However, the interim reimbursements are not mandatory, so you would have the choice, basically, if you want to send in an interim or if you want to wait till you completely executed the project to send in for your reimbursement. No funds are advanced to the beneficiary. It is not a loan, so you're not required to pay back Caribbean Export. It may not be awarded retrospectively, meaning Caribbean Export will only reimburse amounts spent after the grant contract is signed. So let's say, for instance, you are currently starting a project before you were awarded the grant. Any expenses that you would have incurred before you were awarded the grant will not be reimbursed from the grant. So only expenses incurred after you sign the contract can be refunded. Eligibility requirements. You must be a firm legally registered and operating within CARIFORUM, must have the last 2 years financial statements, including your income statement or profit and loss and your balance sheet. A point to note is that these statements do not have to be audited. We also accept unaudited financial statements. However, you must demonstrate your ability to finance 100% of the proposed project. That is 100% financing is available prior to the start of the project. And as Sonia goes through the application process, she would give you more information as to what supporting documents you would need to demonstrate this ability. Next, you must be exporting or looking to develop your capacity to export. BSOs, business support organizations, are not eligible, and applicants with a current contract under the last call, which was EDS 11-1801, are not eligible to apply. So if you currently have an open contract where your implementation period would have recently ended, you would have to make sure that you send in all of your final documentation to us to have that contract closed off before you can apply under this new call. The application process. Applications will only be accepted after the call for proposals is published by Caribbean Export. The application form and guidelines can be downloaded from our website. Applications must be submitted in English only. And please take note that the date that the call opens would be April the 29th. Also, applicants are required to submit 2 copies of their application in hard copy by registered mail, courier, or hand delivered to Caribbean Export headquarters, addressed to the attention of the Manager, Competitiveness and Export Promotion, Caribbean Export Development Agency, 1st floor, Baobab Towers, Warren, St. Michael. The outer envelope must bear the title of the call for proposals, EDS 11-1901. The evaluation process. Evaluation process is up to 65 working days, commencing from the next working day after the call for proposal closes. So as soon as the call closes, the next day we start our evaluation period, which takes up to 65 working days. Applications will be evaluated on the strength of the project proposal, as well as the company's ability to execute the project successfully. Applicants receiving a final score of 70% or greater will be considered for a grant. Now we're going to look at some eligible project costs. Now these are just some examples for guidance only, but these are not the full expenses that will be eligible under the project. So we have equipment upgrade and modernization, retrofitting facilities to attain a specific standard, international food, quality, and environment standards, gap audit, research, development, and innovation, training programs, technical assistance, marketing services and activities, including trade fair participation, trade missions, and in-market activities, and promotional material, brochures, catalogs, CDs, videos, etc. Now, all of those are some of the costs that would be eligible for reimbursement under the DAGS program. Also, implementation of IT solutions, product and service development, market research and tested, intellectual property activities. Now, as I said initially, this list is only for guidance. Now we're going to look at some ineligible project costs. Sponsorship, travel costs, including airfare, hotel, and per diem. So if you could remember, when I was looking at the eligible project costs, I had trade fairs and trade shows would be eligible. So in terms of the trade fairs and the trade shows and conferences, we would reimburse booth costs and registration, but the airfare, hotel, and per diem will not be a reimbursable expense. Also, individual scholarships, training courses, acquisition of motor vehicles, salaries, wages, and other HR expenses. And to expand on this more, in terms of the salaries, if you currently have a salaried employee who will be working on your DAGS project, you will not be able to reimburse them. They will have to be paid from your company's operating expenses. However, if you hire consultants to undertake duties on the project, you'll be able to recoup this cost from the DAGS. Interest owed is also an ineligible project cost. Taxes, so all taxes whatsoever. There are no taxes that are eligible under this program, and no interim financing costs. Now here we come to the end of the brief overview, and I will just briefly take you through the role of the country advisor. Now, every country has assigned country advisors. From Grenada, your country advisors are Keisha Mitchell and Karen Boatswain from the Grenada Industrial Development Corporation, and we will have those names and contact numbers on our website that you can contact them if need be. Now, the role of the country advisor is to provide direct technical assistance to firms in assessing and navigating the DAGS, with special focus on the reimbursement process. The country advisor would act as an extension of the DAGS unit within Caribbean Export and should be your first point of contact to address any concerns or questions regarding your application and reimbursement process. However, please note that your country advisor, our country advisor's job is not to prepare your proposal for you, to prepare your reimbursement for you. That is primarily your job. They are just there to offer you any technical assistance you need, so you can feel free to contact them in that regard. Next, they also provide information to firms regarding the application process. As I mentioned before, provide technical assistance to successful applicants in navigating their reimbursement process. Most importantly, when you are sending in your reimbursement claim, the country advisors are required to review that documentation and sign off, which means you'll be required to make an appointment with them, take all your hard copies to them, where they would review and sign off prior to you sending them to us at Caribbean Export. They also provide input to the DAGS team at Caribbean Export on applications from respective countries as required. Now, as you may be wondering, how safe is your information? While all of our country advisors have signed non-disclosure agreements, and this is to give assurance to you, the applicants, that your sensitive information is safe, also to protect the country advisors, and most importantly, to maintain the integrity of our grants process. So here ends our overview of the DAGS program and the role of the country advisor. At this point, I have unmuted the mics in case anyone have any questions before I pass you over to Ms. Sonia Bowen, who will take you through your proposal writing and your application process. Are there any questions at this point?
Can you let us know if you're hearing us? Are you still with us?
Yes, we are.
Yes, we're hearing you.
Okay, thank you.
Since there are no questions, we will proceed with the proposal writing as it pertains to the Direct Assistance Grant Scheme. When applying for grant funding, you should determine the following: the eligibility criteria, the guidelines, how funds are dispersed, where to access the application form, the method of submitting the application form, the deadline of submission, date and time of the application form. Mistakes and pitfalls to avoid when you are preparing your application: not adhering to the deadline, not submitting the application to the correct address, not using the correct application form, and not submitting the required support documentation with the application. Continuing on with the pitfalls, not defining your project, not providing measurable indicators or results. In completing your application form, we will suggest that you ask yourself the question, is your proposal, and we're using this as an example, is your proposal to market or promote your firm's services or goods? Number 7, not justifying the importance or need of the project. What do I mean by this? Not explaining or illustrating that a project or action is necessary. The action, it should be supported by, but not limited to, market information, market trends, market research, consumer demand, etc. Not providing a credible budget that supports the proposed project activities. By that I mean that your budget should be plausible and it should be believable. Number 9, failure to complete the diagnostic tool and submitting the printed results of your application. Last year on the last call, we introduced this feature, the diagnostic tool, which must be completed by all applicants who are submitting an application to the scheme for funding. We have a presentation on the tool, so I'm not going to go into this right now, but we would go into that much later when we come to that presentation. Number 10, not linking the outcome of the project to the success of the project. This would be the results or the outputs. How will they validate the success of the project, especially those that are measurable items? What are the next steps to preparing a successful application? Consider who is your audience. How will your application be evaluated? Ask yourself, who will be evaluating my proposal? And what do you want the evaluators to get from your application? How can I demonstrate the importance and needs of the proposal? Also ask yourself, how can I explain effectively the reasons for undertaking the project, and how will it improve the company's business, operations, bottom lines? Example of these would be your project should be researched extensively. It should provide evidence that the proposed solution is correct and that it will work. It should be financially feasible, and the content or description should be clear and it should validate results. The proposal format of the scheme is laid out below. When completing your application, these subheadings here, you would have to input the information, the requisite information on the application form for these subheadings. The project title, the overview of your company, the project objectives, the description, methodology, the action plan, the results, or the measurable, your indicators, which will be your outputs, your budget, and diagnostic tool assessment. The key principles of your application. Let's look at the project title. is a general description of the activity to be undertaken or the intended results. The overview of your company. You would have to provide a historical overview of the business, highlighting the types of services and goods that are being offered or produced. Indicate the number of employees that you have, and also indicate if there are any export markets and projected areas for growth. Your project objectives. The objective of the application, you should have a plan to achieve a desired or tangible result. This would be a detailed activity that leads to improvement for your business. Your objectives should also be SMART, which should be specific, they should be measurable, they should be attainable, realistic, and timely. To determine if your objective is measurable, ask yourself how much, how many, how will I know when it is accomplished, and they should be validated by the results, meaning, as an example, increase in sales or an increase of 2018 annual sales by 20% for 2019. The description of your project. This should be or is an executive summary, given a brief description of the organization and summarizing the details of the project as well as the projected outcomes. It should also provide a clear insight on how the project will be undertaken. Continuing on, a detailed description of each activity to be undertaken should be included with the action plan, and also a detailed description of the human resources to be utilized on the project. That would be the project staff or management staff. However that staff is made up, we would need to see who they are, the names, the staff qualification, and the job experience. You also have to identify quantifiable results that the activities aim to achieve. The description should also outline the approach or a particular procedure and how the project activities will be undertaken. You're also required to provide a statement on how the project will also be undertaken, including the resources. This could be financial, any capital, and your human resources. It should highlight the overall design of the project and the problems to be addressed and resolved. The action plan summarizes the overall project activities. It also illustrates what activities will be undertaken and the required resources and the duration of each activity. Your project results or outputs, they should be measurable. You should indicate if they are essential to validate the success of the project. Specifically, those items that are measurable or tangible. Demonstrate the proposed project activities, if they are completed, or how they will be beneficial to the project. Next, we're going to look at your budget. The budget provides a clear indication of the goods and services to be procured for the project in achieving its primary objectives. It must be credible and realistic in terms of costing. It must also reflect or support the proposed action. What we mean here is, in your application, if you are indicating that you are going to purchase equipment or machinery, we must see these items itemized on your budget and the appropriate cost allocated for each item. The same principle applies if you would be hiring the services of a consultant. This could be a lawyer for intellectual property, a broker. If you're going to, a trade fair, you need to break down each item and indicate the respective amount that you will be allocating for that expense. I'm going to open the floor for any questions on the application, on the proposal writing. If you have any questions, you can raise them now before we go on to the application process.
Hi, is a copy of this presentation going to be available after?
Yes, everyone will get a copy of the presentation that you can go through it in your leisure.
Oh, okay, thank you.
You may have missed, you can refer to the presentation. We will send that to you immediately after. And should you have any questions that you can think of after we have completed this presentation, you can send those queries to DAGS, D-A-G-S, info@carib-export.com. We would also send that link to you when we are sending you the presentation. Any other questions? Yes. Any other questions? Okay. Let's continue on with the application process. The publication date for this call for proposal is April 29th, 2019. The deadline for application is June 11th, 2019 at 4:30 p.m. Barbados time. Two hard copies of your application must be submitted in hard copy via registered mail, courier, or they can be hand-delivered to Caribbean Export on or before the deadline date. If you're going to be applying to the scheme, please take into consideration if you're going to send it by your application by registered mail, there's a time process involved. So give yourself that additional time for your application to reach Caribbean Export on time. If you're sending it by courier, also give yourself some additional time so that it can reach us on time. There might be a delay in the flights. These things do happen, so please take all of these things into consideration. Under this call, no extensions will be granted. I just want to reiterate here that Tanya would have already stated where the address of where you're supposed to send your application. Please ensure that it comes to our current address where we are and not where we used to be located about 5-6 years ago. They should be addressed, your application should be addressed to the Manager, Competitiveness and Export Promotion, Caribbean Export Development Agency, first floor, Bay Towers, Warren, St. Michael, Barbados. And ensure that the outer envelope lists the name of this call, which would be EDF 11-1901. The profile of the applicant. This would include the company details, which is the name and address of your company, the date of the company registration, the name and position and telephone number of your main contact, the person that we will be liaising with, should we have any queries as it relates to your application, or if you're awarded a grant, your reimbursement claim. Your banking details, the name and address of your bank, your account number, your SWIFT ABA codes, all the information that is necessary and pertain to wire transfer. If you are awarded a grant, we will refund you by sending your payment by a wire transfer. So we will need all the correct details in this wire, in your application form when we are sending the wire. Description of activities to be undertaken. That would be a brief description of your company, including the different types of products and services, your clientele, the markets that you are into, your number of employees, etc. You should also explain and outline the details of each activity, which should be clear but concise on the importance of the project and the need to undertake these activities. Describe the challenges or issues that the activities are intended to resolve. Ensure that the activities are aligned with the project objectives and the results. The activities must also be reflected in the detailed budget. I just went through that a few minutes ago when I indicated that whatever you have in your application form, it should be measured, or the budget, it should be listed in your budget. Your budget must be detailing the items of expense that you have listed in the application form. The action plan should summarize all of your activities to be completed, indicating the resources to be used and the duration. Let's look at this example below. In this example, this company activities, one of them was research study. The duration allocated for this activity was 3 months. The resources that would be required would be a research consultant and the applicant. Another activity was the purchase of equipment and the installation of said equipment. The duration allocated for this was 4 months. The resources was the equipment supplier and the applicant. Training was required for the equipment that was purchased. The duration allocated for that was 2 months, and the resources would have been the staff. A description of the human resources to be utilized. This would be a description of the management team or the project team. You also have to indicate their experience and their qualifications. Demonstrate that the company has the capacity to undertake these activities. If you're going to hire a consultant or consultants, you also have to indicate the type of consultants there are and their level of experience in undertaking these activities. List the expected results. This would be the objectives. Are they measurable? And the quantifiable indicators. One of the objectives could be increase of production output by 20%. What would be the quantifiable indicator? In this instance, it would be installation and operation of a new production equipment. Additionally, number of products produced. An objective was to increase visibility of the company's products. How would you do that? It would be, the indicator would be the production of the materials, the collateral materials, such as brochures, advertisements, and promotional events. Another indicator would be an increase in annual sales by 20%. What would be the quantifiable indicator? The number of products sold for that year. Explain the relevance or importance of the project activities to the company. You would have to indicate the challenges affecting the company. How will the proposed activities remedy or improve the existing challenges? What are the implications of these challenges? Are there any opportunities to be explored, any new opportunities? How will the proposed intervention affect the growth or the strategy of the company? Indicate if there are any value-added elements. Are there any environmental issues, concerns that these activities would address? Are there any partnerships? Are you going into any partnerships with anyone? Will there be development of new products? Does the company support gender equality and provision of equal opportunities? In this instance, employment of women. Indicate how the activities will be financed. Will it be through personal funds? Would it be through an open line of credit by your financial institution or bank loan? How will the activities be sustained after grant funding has ended? It could be, in this example, an increased production of goods resulting in increased revenue, which will be utilized to facilitate improvement in other areas of the company. This is just an example. Describe your partner. For any of you who are applying to the scheme and you're going to enter into a partnership with someone, another company or someone else who would be assisting you in implementing the activities, there is a section in the application form that relates to our call for a partner. That section must be completed by that partner. We would need the name and address of the company or the person, the history between you and that person, their role, what is their role or involvement in the project, the name of the contact person, and the position. That partnership agreement in the application form must also be signed by that partner. A computerized signature is not accepted. It must be a physical signature. If the computerized signature is affixed onto the application, you will not be able to use that person to help you implement your project activities. So please remember to get them to sign it. The budget. When you access Caribbean Export's website to download the application form, You would also have to click on this link on our website to access the budget template. The budget must be completed and 2 copies printed and submitted with a copy of each application. A reminder to ensure that you have itemized the items or the services that you're going to purchase, and you have the relevant budget allocated to each line. Make sure that the costs for each item are adequate. For this call, no budget reallocations will be allowed when this grant has been awarded. So please make sure that your budget is adequate for each item, because no reallocations to the budget would be allowed. If you forget to submit the 2 copies of your budget, your application will be ineligible. So please ensure that you have 2 copies of the budget with each application. Following is an example or template of this is how our budget will look. We have a fixed sum budgets and expenses to give you an idea how to complete your form, but the budget is an Excel spreadsheet, and if you have additional expenses that you need to input into this form, you may do so. We recommend that you do it. If you're purchasing equipment, on the equipment, insert additional lines that you can itemize the items that you're going to purchase. For any machines, the principle is the same. Insert additional lines and itemize the items that you will be purchasing. This budget is made up of 2 components. Component 1, equipment and supplies. Component 2, other costs and services. Under component 1, equipment and supplies, we have some headings of eligible expenses. That would be furniture, computer equipment, machine and tools, spare parts, renewable energy, and any other item that we would deem eligible, you could indicate on the other. Under other costs and services, some eligible expenses would be publications, research and studies, food and safety, HACCP certification, consultants, costs to attend conferences or trade fairs. Of course, we will not reimburse your travel, hotel, or accommodation. That would be your expense, or will come out of your 30%. We would only refund the registration fees and the booth costs. And protection of intellectual property. Again, this is just as a guide, but you can insert additional rules under these 2 components and tailor it to your project. The reason that we are stressing that you itemize the items, your goods and your services, is you can, when an item or items or services are completed, you can write in or you can request interim reimbursement. Now, because you would have itemized these items, as long as some of them are completed, then you can submit those expenses for reimbursement. However, if you do not itemize them and you just lump them on the one total, for instance, furniture, if you just allocate $20,000 to furniture and you did not break down the furniture, then you would have to complete the purchase of all of your furniture or equipment before you can submit those items for reimbursement. The same principle would apply for each and every other budget line. If you don't break it out and you just allocate one global figure for each expense, you have to complete all of the items that would be categorized to that one heading. For instance, consultants, if you're going to utilize more than one consultant, break it down. On the consultants, insert 2 lines. For example, if you're going to you are going to register a trademark or a patent. On the consultant, insert an additional line because you will have to go to utilize the services of a lawyer. The lawyer would be considered a consultant. So you can break them down, and when these expenses are completed, you can then request a reimbursement. The diagnostic tool. The diagnostic tool assesses or identifies the strengths and the weaknesses of the company. It also identifies the company's ability to successfully indicate the project activities. Again, I would not go any further into this at this point, as there is a presentation on the diagnostic tool that is coming up. But you must go on our website and click on the link under the DIAGS area. Click on the link that will be provided, which will take you to the diagnostic assessment tool. This tool must be completed by each applicant to the scheme. If this tool is not completed, your application will be ineligible. When you have completed the diagnostic tool, we are just requiring you to print the final results page. It is 1 page, and we are requesting that you print 2 copies of that final results page. The tool, when you go through the tool, is made up of 4 pillars. So there's a lot of paper that if you have to print it, you would be printing, and you don't need to send us all that paper because you would be charged if you're sending it by courier or a registered mail. You'll be charged on the weight of the package. And to eliminate that, we just need the final results page of this tool. Print 2 copies and submit with your application form. Remember, if you do not submit the final results page, your application form will be ineligible. Supporting documents to be submitted with your application form. A notarized copy of your registration of certification or your certificate of incorporation. 2 copies of the last 2 years of your financial statements. These may be audited or unaudited. You do not have to go to a Pricewaterhouse or Ernst & Young to get your statements prepared. They can be, if you know of accountants, you know any accountants, they can also prepare your financials, but you must submit 2 copies of the last 2 years of your financials. This would include your income or profit and loss statement and your balance sheet. You cannot submit one without the other. If you only submit your income statement, your application will be ineligible. You must submit the income or / profit and loss statement along with your balance sheet. Additionally, any financial supporting documentation. This would be a letter of intent from your financial suppliers, which would indicate that they're offering you a line of credit or a loan to implement the project, or any additional bank statements or copies of your certificate of deposit. The declaration form. At the back of your application form, there is a declaration form. This declaration form is to be read carefully and signed and dated by all applicants. If you do not sign the declaration form, your application will be rendered ineligible. We had about 2 instances on the last call where applicants submitted all of the documentation, but they did not sign the form. And because of that, the application was ineligible. So please make sure you sign the form. Directly following the declaration form, we have a checklist for you to be guided by, more or less a reminder. This would be a trigger to you, the applicant, to ensure that you have all of these things when submitting your application. Make sure that your application form is fully completed, that you have signed and dated both forms, you have proof of registration or incorporation attached to both applications, you have the final results page, 2 copies of your diagnostic assessment, you have 2 copies of your financials. That would be your income or profit and loss statement and your balance sheet. And this would be for the last 2 years. This can be audited or unaudited. Your financial availability to implement the project. This would be 2 copies of a letter of intent or a loan from your financial institution. This could also include additional bank statements or copies of your fixed deposit. Ensure that the partnership agreement is signed if you will be joining with a partner, that your budget is expressed in euros and not EC dollars, that you have indicated the requested contribution amount from Caribbean Export. This could be 10,000 euros or 30,000 euros. Next, we will be looking at the application evaluation. The application will be evaluated by members of the review committee on the 2 main areas of assessment. The first being feasibility. Using the evaluation grid, the evaluators would be assessing your application, and as an applicant, you will be receiving a weighted average equal to or greater than 70%. So if your application has a pass mark of 70% or more, it will be ranked. A point to note that all ranked applications though eligible, may not be awarded due to the prearranged value of the financial envelope that is assigned to the direct assistance scheme. That means that you may have passed, you may have the 70% or more pass mark, but because of the amount that's been allocated to the scheme, you may not receive a grant. The second area of assessment would be the company's ability to execute the project successfully. And this must be assisted by the results of the diagnostic assessment. The diagnostic assessment tool identifies and diagnoses the strengths and the weaknesses of companies across 4 main pillars. That would be management, production, finance, and marketing. The full results of the assessment must be printed and submitted with both copies of your application. So that would be the results page, that final page. 2 copies must be printed and submitted with your application. Next, we're going to look at the evaluation grid. This is how you would be evaluated on your application when the evaluators are reviewing it. This grid is also can be found in the application form. So we already have the questions here that you can go back and look at your application to see if you have answered all of these questions, if they are clear, if they are concise, if the evaluators can see when they review your application, where is you want to take your company, what is the big picture that you are projecting. Under the relevance of the project, they will look to see how relevant is the proposal to the objectives of the scheme, how relevant to the particular needs and constraints of the intended beneficiaries or the partner is to the proposal. Do the proposed activities support the overall growth or strategy of the firm? How clearly defined and strategically chosen are those involved? Have their needs been clearly defined, and does the proposal address them appropriately? Does the proposal contain any specific value-added elements? Innovation, best practices, or cross-cutting issues, such as climate change, promotion of gender equality and equal opportunities. You will also note that in the evaluation grid, you will see the score for each question that is posed here. So for each one, you will be scored out of the score that you see assigned for each question. They would also look at the effectiveness and feasibility of the project. This would be, are the activities proposed appropriate? Are they practical, consistent with the objectives and the expected results? Is the action plan clear and feasible? Does the proposal contain quantifiable indicators for the outcome of the project? How coherent is the overall design of the project? In particular, does it reflect the analysis of the problems involved? Is the applicant or partner's level of involvement and participation in the project satisfactory? And the score for each of these questions is 6. The next area would be sustainability of the project. Is the project likely to have a tangible impact on the beneficiary, which is you, the applicant, or your partners? Is the proposal likely to have multiplier effects? Are the expected results of the proposed project sustainable? Meaning, is it financially sustainable, institutionally sustainable, you would also need to indicate under institutionally how the structures will allow the activities to continue to be in place at the end of the project. At policy level, economically, and the total score for these three questions, total score is a score of 20. But each question, one is 7 points, the other is 6, and the other one is 7. And the final area that you will be judged on, evaluated on, is your budget. Are the activities appropriately reflected in the budget? Is the proposed expenditure necessary for the implementation of the budget? And you will notice that the budget has the highest, well, 2 questions, but those 2 questions have the highest score. We would go on to look at the 4 pillars of assessment that the evaluation tool would assess you on. Product and services, management, marketing, finance, and each pillar is scored out of 100. Under product and services, the tool will look at the demand, innovation and research and development, production, service delivery. Under management, it will look at structure, the strategy of your company, skills and experience, and the risk management. Under marketing, it would assess you on your brand strength, marketing penetration, customer experience, and outreach. Finance is a bit more. This information will come from your income, profit and loss statements. So whatever you have in those, you need to input on the finance. It looks at your revenue sources, your access to funding, accountability, profitability, sensitivity, solvency. And these 4 pillars, each of them will be scored out of 100, and this will be based on the information that you input in the tool. It's the only part of the evaluation process where you will get your score up front. The diagnostic tool would only represent 30% of your score, however. The bulk of your score, 70%, would be evaluated on your project. We take a look at the results page of the diagnostic assessment. This is the page that we wish you to print 2 copies of to submit with your application. It gives the average score for each of the main pillars. On the product and services, the average score is 48%. On the management is 47%. On the marketing is 46%. On the finance is 34%. And the average score for these 4 pillars is 44%. If your score for the assessment is low, please do not get worried. As I said earlier, this only represents 30% of your score. Your main score will come from the project. This is how we would assess your weighted average score. The project is 30%. The project is 70%. The diagnostic is 30%. Each criterion will be scored from 1 to 100 using the evaluation grid that I went through before. as well as the results of the diagnostic assessment. In this example, this is how we would reach your total scores. For the project, the total score was 80. 70% of that to achieve your weighted score was 56. For the diagnostic tool, the score was 75, and 30% of that to achieve the weighted score was 22.5. So in total, the application was scored a total score of 78.5%, which of course is past that pass mark of 70%. This is the final slide in this application, and we just want to go through briefly the process, the evaluation, the grant application process. Caribbean Export will publish the call for 6 weeks. A reminder that that call will be published on our website on April 29th, and the deadline is June 11th, 4:30 p.m. Barbados time. Applicants will then submit an application by the stated deadline. The applications will be evaluated by the evaluation committee comprising of officers from the Office of the Deputy Regional Authorizing Officer, that's a financial arm in the government of Barbados, and also reviewing committee members from inside of Caribbean Export. The evaluation committee report would be prepared. Caribbean Export will then notify all applicants of the status of their application, whether they were successful or unsuccessful, and then Caribbean Export will issue a contract, sign this contract, and award them to the successful beneficiaries. If you are awarded a grant by Caribbean Export, when you receive that notification, please do not go out there and start the implementation process. If you are awarded a grant and you receive the contract from us, you have to sign and date that contract. Your implementation period will start the day after you sign the contract. So let's say you receive your contract September 20th, and you sign and dated it September 20th. Your implementation period will start September 21st, and that is from that time period that your quotations, your invoices, your contracts, your receipts should be within that implementation period or dated within that implementation period. If you go ahead and source your quotations and start to order your items or your services before you sign that contract with us, you would have to get your supplier to change the date on each piece of documentation. If the documents are dated outside of the implementation period, those items will not be eligible for refund. So please remember, all of your documents must be dated within the implementation period. I'm going to open the floor now for any questions that you may have. Do you have any questions?
Hi, so this grant works by, we must first have 100% of the money required to fund the project, right?
That's correct.
So it has to be obtained by some other means, or if you had the money there already. And
Yeah.
you guys only refund 70% of that money after the implementation period, right?
Yeah, up to a maximum of 30,000 euros, and it must be on the eligible expenses, and of course, all of the correct documentation must also be submitted.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions?
Hang on. I gotta go in.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
The reimbursement, would it be in the currency of the country or in the currency of the invoicing? So for instance, if I have to buy equipment out of the UK and I had to pay sterling for it, would I be reimbursed in sterling or would I be reimbursed in, whichever currency in the Caribbean, whether it's TT or Bajan or EC dollars?
Okay. The grant is in euros, and when we prepare the reimbursement for payment, it leaves our account in euros. However, when it reaches your account, you may not receive it in euros. That we have no control over that. Your bank may convert that into your national currency and apply the funds to your account. But when it leaves our account, it goes in euros. Yeah.
Okay.
To add to what Sonia said, unless you have a euro account
Right.
in your country, then most likely the bank will convert it to whatever currency your account is.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions? Before we go on to the presentation of the diagnostic tool, any questions? Let us know. If you can't think of any questions right now, you can send your questions to DAGS-info@carib-export if you have no other questions. Okay, I'll turn you over to my colleague, and he will do the presentation of the diagnostic tool. He will go through that with you. Remember, you must complete this tool in order to apply for the funding. Jimmy?
Thank you very much, Sonia. Good morning, everyone. Just confirming everyone can hear me and also everyone can see the screen for the diagnostic tool.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so just to take you through a little bit about the diagnostic assessment tool, many of you who would have applied for the grant last year would have already completed an assessment, so you may be familiar with the tool, but I'll just go through briefly this morning for those of you who are not. Just a bit of a background. The purpose of the tool is really to assess the company's ability to execute the project. As Sonia would have mentioned earlier, I'm sure, we rate your application on two basic criteria. One, the quality of the proposal itself, which is weighted at 70%, and secondly, the ability of the company to execute the project, which is rated at 30%. The reason being is that what we find is that many companies have great projects, excellent projects, that are well written and well thought out. Unfortunately, they are not built or structured to execute this project within the 6-month time frame that is required for the grants. So we have to ensure that the company has the necessary capacity, be it management capacity, be it technical capacity, be it financial capacity to execute the project within the 6-month time period. And to do that, we utilize our Caribbean Export Diagnostic Assessment tool. Now, the tool is an online tool, and it essentially rates the company under 4 main categories, which is product and service, their product and service capacity, management capacity, marketing capacity, and financial capacity. So those are the 4 main pillars that the diagnostic tool really looks at. As I mentioned, it's an online questionnaire. You can log in and you answer the questions, and it's done all online. The assessment will probably take about 90 minutes to complete, but I should say that that assessment is very conservative. 90 minutes will probably be from start to finish if you have all the information in front of you and you don't stop. But what we find is that you will have to consult with your human resource department, you'll have to consult with your production department, you'll have to probably have your accountant present or your accounting statement in front of you. So I would say devote enough time to get the diagnostic tool complete, because it will probably take you longer than 90 minutes. And of course, the tool allows you to save and to come back again. If you want to take a break or if you need to get additional information, you can save the information and come back and complete it at a later date, which we will demonstrate as we go through the tool. So essentially what you will have to do is on the diagnostic, on the application form for DAGS, there's the link towards the diagnostic tool. You click on that link and it will take you to this home page over here. We have some preamble. You will see that the assessment is broken down into 6 basic sections. The first one is essentially your basic company data, where we ask name, contact information, etc. And then we proceed to the 4 main areas. As I mentioned, product and service, management, marketing, and the financial assessment is broken down into 2 sections. One, the actual financial assessment, and secondly, you will be required to put your financial statements into the diagnostic assessment. Now, this should not be an issue because you have to submit your financial statements with the package in any event. So you need to have the financial statements in front of you, and you have to enter them into the tool. Now, you will see here that you can click here to start a new assessment, but you can also enter what we call a TAN. Essentially, a TAN functions as your password. Once you complete the first page of the assessment, which is your basic company data, you will receive a TAN that you can enter and complete and continue your assessment at any point or access your assessment at any point. Now, the TAN will pop up on screen, and we ask that you take the time to write down your TAN, but also the TAN will be sent via email to the email address that you enter in the system. So please keep that email handy. What we found in the past, that companies would delete that email, and then they would lose the TAN, and then they would need to access the form. And to do that, you would have to write into Caribbean Export, which will delay the process. So please keep your TAN handy. You can access your assessment at any point, even after you have completed it. So this is how, and just one more thing, on the home page, we have a link to some tutorial videos. So if after this presentation, you are still not clear on anything, you can always refer to the tutorial videos that will basically outline what you need to know about completing and accessing your diagnostic tool. So to start the tool, the first thing you have to do is click on this red tab. Please click here to start a new assessment. So once you click on that, it will take you to the first page of the assessment. You will see here that there are a number of bubbles at the top of the screen. This is your navigation system. You can basically jump around the tool at any point in time once you have completed the first page. You will see the first page is highlighted in yellow. Once you've completed the first page and moved on, you will see all the other bubbles are highlighted in yellow. That will allow you to jump around into any one of the forms. So if you want to complete the marketing form first or the finance form first, that's no problem. You just click on the bubble at the top, and it will allow you to navigate throughout the entire tool. Once you have completed all the forms, you will have to basically lock and process each form, after which it will be highlighted in green. Only after you have locked and processed all the forms, then you will be able to see your results. And I will explain that a little bit more as we go down. So you're required to complete the basic company information. You enter all your information here. I'm not going to go through each of these fields in great detail, but I just want to say very importantly, you will see here, any of us who have completed online forms before would realize the sections that have an asterisk next to it are compulsory. I will draw your information to the email field. Please ensure that you put a correct email or a functioning email address, because this is where your TAN will be sent, and this is what will be used to communicate with you regarding the diagnostic tool. First thing I want to highlight is economic sector. You see manufacturing and services. If you click on manufacturing, there are a number of subsectors that we will ask you to highlight. The one that best suits your business or best fits your primary business activities. Please note you can select more than one. So if you do textile, but also iron and steel, you can click either or. If you're a services firm, you can click on services and select which sector best suits your primary business activities. Please note, if you select manufacturing or you select service, the tool will automatically customize itself depending on what you select. So if you are a services firm, you will be asked certain questions. If you're a manufacturing firm, you will be asked certain questions. So please take the time and select the firm, select the category that best describes your firm's primary activities. We know that some firms engage in both manufacturing and services, but select the, and because the tool customizes it based on your primary activity, select the sector that best describes your primary activity. If you scroll down to here, you will see questions for us. Is the company currently exporting? If you select no, you will see some questions will pop up. If you select yes, you will see additional questions pop up. And this is done throughout the firm. If you're an exporting firm, it will ask you certain questions. If you're a non-exporting firm, it will ask you additional questions. So once you've completed the first page, you can click save and continue to the next section. That will allow you to jump to the rest of the assessment, where you can navigate throughout the various forms. However, if you click lock and process section, that will essentially lock the form and you will not be able to make any additional changes to this form again. So I would suggest you can save and continue throughout the entire form, and once you are sure and you are happy with what you've inputted in the tool, then you can click lock and process on all the forms. So what I will do now is I will take you through a test assessment so you can see how it would work throughout the form. So you will see here, I will enter a TAN for a test assessment that I have done. So you will enter your TAN here. You will click sign in, and you will see that you will realize, first of all, that all the bubbles are now highlighted in green, which means that all of these forms have been completed and locked and processed, and then you can see your results. The reason being we did that is that we know how persons are, is that you would complete the form and you will see your results, and you may not like what the results say, so you may try to go back and make some changes to your form to try to get a higher score. What we do is we encourage everyone to please be honest and be truthful, because the tool essentially identifies what are your major strengths and your major weaknesses, and it really serves no purpose to try to lie about or to try to make your weaknesses, you know, to try to disguise your weaknesses. I just want to say that the weighting with regards to the DAGS, the weighting for the form for the diagnostic assessment is just 30%. So there really is no big difference in your assessment, in your DAGS score, if you get a 60 on your tool or you get a 65. It's not going to have a great impact. And also, if we see, the tool will highlight certain areas that are inconsistent. So if you go back and you try to make yourself score higher, we will identify those areas and we'll realize that maybe your assessment is not telling the whole story. So please be honest, and it will work out, trust me. So we can look at the first section, the product and service section, and you will see there are a number of questions, but I just want to say the product and service section, as with all other sections, are divided into sub-areas. Product and service, you will see the sub-areas are demand, production capacity and or service delivery capacity, as well as certification and quality. So you will go through the tool and you will complete all the questions. You will notice in some areas, I just want to highlight, that we ask for what are your top 3 selling products and or service, and you enter the information here. There are a number of areas throughout the tool where we ask more information about your top 3 selling products or service. Once you enter the information here, you don't have to re-enter it further down in the tool where we ask this question. So the system is smart in that way. So it is automatically populated once you enter this information here. So you can go ahead and you can complete the tool. And as I mentioned before, at the bottom, well, you won't see it here because this section is already locked and processed. At the bottom, you will have save and continue, or lock and process. Once you lock and process, the form is locked and you can't make any additional changes. So you can see here, this is the product and service form. We can just jump quickly to the management form. And you will see the management form is also broken down into 4 main areas, which are structure, strategy, experience, skills and experience, and risk management. So again, it's broken down into 4 areas and you answer all the questions. While you proceed through the form, you will see that we use certain specialized terms. If you don't understand the terms, there are bubbles next to it. Once you click on the bubble, it will give you a definition so you can understand exactly what we're talking about. So what I will do now is I will just jump briefly to the finance assessment form, which requires some additional work. You will see here the finance assessment form essentially asks you to put in your financial statements into the diagnostic assessment tool. We ask that all assessments are completed in US dollar currency, but if your financial statements are in local currency, that's no problem. You can simply change this to reflect EC dollars or any currency that you wish. Now, the first thing you would realize is that there is a baseline form, a post+1 form, and a post+2 section. The baseline for this particular assessment is 2017 because we started this assessment in 2017. But if you start this assessment in 2019, your baseline will be 2019, and your post+1 and your post+2 will be 2020 and 2021. You are not required to put in financial statements for 2020 and 2021, i.e. projections. What this section here is for is if you have to update your assessment at any point, you can add in the financial assessments for post-1 and post-2. All you are required for the purpose of this assessment is to enter your baseline data as well as your pre-data, which is your year before financial assessments. Because again, for the diagnostic, for the DAGS, you are required to submit your 2 most recent financial statements. I just want to say that this form is also, it has some built-in formulas in them, so you don't have to type out the entire thing. For example, you will see cash sales and total turnover. If you enter a number for credit sales, you will see automatically that turnover has been automatically updated. So you can enter your financial statements very easily. In some cases, you can summarize. If you don't want to break down all your expenses, you can simply enter your total expenses and it will update automatically. It will calculate your net profit and your gross profit. So you can enter this information as you see fit, as well as for your balance sheet. Once you complete that and you lock and process all sections, you can now see your results, which I will click on now. You will notice that the results are broken down into 4 main areas as well: product and service, management, marketing, and finance, as well as a consolidated result. If you click on each of the individual results, for example, product and service, you will see that it is broken down into the 4 sub areas, which I identified earlier: demand, innovation, product and service capacity, and certification and quality. And it gives us a score for these areas, as well as a consolidated score for the total pillar. And if you jump into each individual area, you will see the scores for each individual area. I just want to draw your attention to the consolidated scores, which is again gives the total score for each of the 4 pillars, as well as the total score for the company. This is the only form that you are required to submit with your DAGS application. In the past, we have persons printed out all the results areas and submitted. Some of them printed out all the forms, the completed forms, and submitted. While that will not impact your application, it will essentially make you waste a lot of paper printing out all of this, and it will make your application package that much heavier and increase your shipping costs when you want to submit your application into Caribbean Export. So all you will need to do is to submit this last consolidated score. You just need to print this out. It will be one page. You can print it directly from the tool by clicking print, or you can export it to a PDF document, download the PDF document, and print it however you see fit. Whatever you want to do is entirely up to you. So that essentially concludes my presentation for the diagnostic assessment. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to entertain them right now. No questions? Oh, before one last thing, some of you may have completed the diagnostic assessment last year and submitted a grant. So your first question will obviously be, do I need to complete an entirely new assessment for this submission? The answer to that is no. You can submit the assessment from last year with your application package. This year, you don't have to do an entirely new assessment. Should you want to update your existing assessment, all you will need, that's possible, all you will need to do is to write into Caribbean Export at dagsinfo@carib-export.com, indicate your company name, indicate your TAN if you still have it, and we can reopen your assessment, all the pages of your assessment, and you can update it however you see fit. And then once you save and complete, you just print out the results and submit with us. So you don't need to complete an entirely new assessment. You can update your existing assessment. So any questions? I'm not seeing anyone asking. Okay, great. Well, if there are no questions, I'll turn you back over to Sonia and Tonya, and thank you very much and have a good morning.
Thank you, Jamie. Any further questions, anyone? Now is the time. Hello, are you still with us?
Yes, we're still here.
Okay. Well, this concludes the end of the presentation for the direct. Myself for sitting in with us as we went through the process. We wish you a pleasant day and a pleasant and a beautiful afternoon. Good morning.